give you some updates before we start talking these games. Starting with the Texans, Joe Mixon questionable for the divisional round matchup with the Chiefs. He's dealing with an ankle injury. He missed practice yesterday, though it looks like he is trending towards playing. Both Dallas Goedert and A.J. Brown will be available for the Eagles on Sunday. Goedert had missed practice with an illness yesterday, while Brown has been managing a knee injury. Then in Baltimore, Ravens receiver Zay Flowers officially doubtful for their showdown against the Bills. However, head coach John Harbaugh said Flowers still has a chance to play, even though he has missed practice all week long. All right, it's going to be cold. It's playoff football after all. 3 outdoor games expected to be at or below freezing temperatures. Ravens-Bills game expected to have temps in the teens with a chance of snow later in the game. We could also have a snow game at the Link in Philly for Rams and Eagles. So let's come on out to the desk here. Joe, I'll start with you. How does the weather potential impact your handicap this weekend?
Well, it depends on the game. If we're going to start with Baltimore and Buffalo, I would say not much, because I think that's the one a lot of people are focused on. But let's start with Lamar Jackson, right? Like, people assume Buffalo, well, you're used to the cold. You play there. Maybe it's a problem for Baltimore. Lamar Jackson's from Miami. He thrives, shockingly, in this environment. Take a look at this. In his career, when playing in temperatures below 32 degrees, 3-1 straight up, he's actually 4-0 against the spread. That's not up there. Look at the rating. Look at the passing touchdowns. Look at the rushing yards. It's not like it worries him if he goes out there and gets knocked around a little bit. 77. Note, his rushing prop for this game is 49.5. Now, if we were talking about Miami going outdoors in this weather like last year at Kansas City, that affects the handicap. If we talk about a team like the Falcons going outdoors in this weather, that affects the handicap. This is Baltimore. Anybody watch The Wire? Did anyone in that show look like they were afraid of the weather? No, they were not. So no, I don't think the weather impacts this game at all. Both teams want to run, both teams want to play defense.
I'll add that to my list of things that I need to, watch
There you go.
spare time. As for Josh Allen, though, he's 9-1 straight up when playing in weather in the playoffs, 32 degrees or less. But Joe makes a lot of great points. The Baltimore Ravens aren't going to be absolutely concerned about the weather in this spot. Like he mentioned, it's not Miami, but I'm more concerned about the narrative around Lamar Jackson in this spot, the second game of the postseason. He has the second largest drop-off in total QBR from the regular season to the playoffs in the last 20 years. So he's 3-0 straight up in his first game, 0-2 in the second game, and of course takes a dip from his touchdowns as well as his interceptions is more than that. So I'm more concerned about that narrative than I am for the weather with Lamar Jackson. Yes, I know this narrative's been going around forever, but it's still one that I'm feeding into, so I still like Bills money line.
Listen, I lived in Baltimore for 4 years. It gets cold there too. So, you're not talking about a West Coast team like the Rams coming in to play in cold weather. Also, what do we know in cold weather games? Teams who run the football have the success. And let's not forget what Derrick Henry was able to do to this Bills team the first time they went up against them. You look at matchups, the Buffalo Bills ranked 31st in allowing 6 yards per carry when they go up against 21 and 22 personnel. So in layman terms, what does that mean? The Baltimore Ravens play 6 offensive linemen, and they're one of the very few teams who still use a fullback. I know there's young people out there who have no idea what that is because very few teams still play with a fullback, but the Baltimore Ravens do.
He weighs 300 pounds.
Yes, yeah, exactly. He weighs 300 pounds. And then you've got Derrick Henry running behind that, along with Lamar Jackson opening up those running lanes. So if anything, cold weather, okay, I think this benefits the Baltimore Ravens more than it does the Buffalo Bills.
It does seem like Baltimore should benefit from this. You mentioned the Lamar Jackson stats, which were shocking. Surprise, surprise, Derrick Henry is really good in cold weather games. You go back to this time with the Titans, he was really good. As a Raven, in temperatures sub-freezing, 32 degrees, that's week 18 and the wild card round, 46 carries, 324 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He's averaging $160 and 2 scores playing in cold weather games with this Ravens team. Shocker, no one wants to tackle Derrick Henry in the fourth quarter when it's 30 degrees.
I wouldn't want to.
Exactly. So that would seemingly benefit the Ravens. I understand the love for the Ravens, but man, this just kind of feels disrespectful to the Bills. The line in the market is moving towards Baltimore. This game is in Western New York. Josh Allen maybe wins the MVP this year. And it's not like the Bills can't run the football. You've talked about 6 offensive linemen using James Cook, using Ty Johnson, Josh Allen at the goal line. Like, for me, whoever closes as the underdog, I'll probably just bet them for the value because I think it's a true coin flip game.
Fascinating thing about this game is that Zay Flowers was listed as doubtful today, and a respected shop in Vegas went to Baltimore -2.
Oh.
Like, everyone thought it was going to come back the other way when the Flowers news came out, that he was eventually not going to play. Maybe we get to pick him and we work it from there. Nope, didn't happen.
But here's the thing. Lamar Jackson, 4 total targets to Flowers, Bateman, and Mark Andrews when they beat the Buffalo Bills the first time. 4 targets to all of them. So I'm not worried about Flowers not playing.
But remember, they were up big in that game, so they didn't have to throw the ball late. And when people talk about how, and I heard this morning, Flowers wasn't really involved in that game, his presence on the field requires a certain amount of respect that opens up the rest of the field for everybody else. Your point still holds. They were able to handle Buffalo without being too explosive in the passing game. If you're live betting, that's what you want to watch early here. Are they able to get the running game going? Because if they don't, they're going to have to change a lot of that script.
I also think the regular season games are just much different than the situational spots with a lot of the playoffs. I know some of these teams have matched up, such as the Eagles and the Rams earlier this year, but you can't just draw absolute solidified conclusions just from one game when they played each other.
That's a great point. Chiefs are favored, big favorites against the Texans on Saturday, but they've been perfect in this situation, 7-0 win-loss record, but they've also been a terrible bet, 0-7 ATS when laying 6+ points. 8 is the spread this weekend, so Erin, I'll start with you. Does their inability to cover these big spreads in the regular season affect this look at a playoff game?
It does slightly, but only because I actually think this game will be lower scoring. So I would much rather probably take the points here than lay it. But I'm going to play this in 2 different ways. One being Kansas City in the first half. I do expect them to jump out on this team. I'd lay the 4.5 points, even though I know the Houston Texans are 14-4 ATS in the first half, the best mark so far this season. But when they did play each other, and I know I just mentioned not always drawing conclusions from the first game, the Kansas City Chiefs were up by 7 points. The Houston Texans just gave it their all last game. So I'm going to lay the points and also look at the Texans to go under their team total of 17.5 points, because Tank Dell did play in that game and he had a touchdown. They ended up having 19 points and losing that game. I just don't think they're going to be able to put up a ton of points in Kansas City based on the weather and how cold it is for CJ Stroud. So I'll go under 17.5 points for them as well.
So when you're assessing trends like this, like a basic rudimentary 2-part process, number 1, does this trend apply to the team or player in question, right? I bring that up because like back in 2011, the Lions were back on Monday Night Football. Someone was like, hey, Lions are like 5-0 against the spread on Monday Night Football in their last 5 Monday night games when they're playing at home. Like they hadn't hosted a game in 10 years, right? Like so the trend didn't even apply. And a lot of times these trends don't apply, so you throw them out the window. If it does apply, then ask step number 2. Does this give me an edge over the bookmaker? Pretty sure the bookmakers are aware of this trend. I don't think it gives you much of an edge. On top of that, if you want to follow the trend, okay, sure, maybe it means something, but then you're betting into or against the trend of Patrick Mahomes in the divisional round, which is 6-0, and all those fascinating stats. I think ultimately this entire game comes down to the same question when it comes to pricing. They met at the end of December at Arrowhead. Kansas City was -3.5. Now they're meeting again less than a month later, and Kansas City's laying 8 or more. Is the injury to Tank Dell worth 4.5 or 5 points combined with the extra week? Like, we might overvalue these teams coming off their bye weeks, but the Mixon injury looms large here.
You give Andy Reid 3 weeks to go into a lab and prepare for a team, good luck. I'm going to play alternate spread. Like, if you're scared, say you're scared. I'm not scared. I might go Kansas City -9.5. I think this has blowout written all over it. No Tank Dell, of course, no Diggs. Keep in mind, Joe Mixon's dealing with an ankle issue. He was a big factor. His kind of bringing that intensity to why they were able to win in week 1 of the playoffs. Who knows how productive he's going to be. On top of that, this is a Kansas City defense. The last quarter of the season, they were top 3 in the NFL. Chris Jones, they're getting healthier in the secondary with Trent McDuffie, Warren back, Watson is back. Like, this is a team that is getting healthier at the right time. I think that CJ Stroud is in for some tough sledding come tomorrow afternoon.
I tend to agree with that, Anita. If I had to pick a side at 8, I would lay it with the Chiefs. I think we should look at them completely differently now. 3 weeks of rest, completely healthy. The real season for the Chiefs. They've won back-to-back Super Bowls. They cared about the regular season. This is what they're playing for, and I think that Texans team is a little outmatched. I'll turn it back to you, though, teaser queen.
Okay.
I kind of like the Chiefs down to 2 as 1 leg and a 6-point teaser. Would you be on board with that?
You know me. I'm going to play. Are you kidding? How long
I should have asked someone else then. Joe,
who are you talking to? Who are you talking to, Tyler? I'm going to play
Sure.
this a variety of ways. And you listen, I've been winning insane amounts of money with the 6-point.
We're all very happy for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think.
That's velvet? Nice.
That's why.
Absolutely.
Listen,
nice.
the 2-team 6-point teasers have been, Cash money, homie.
I would consider the Chiefs down to 2 as one leg. Speaking of the Chiefs, if they win this game against the Texans, we'll see if Travis Kelce plays a big part. Traditionally, he has been a playoff performer. Over the previous 4 postseasons, Kelce has gone over his receiving yardage prop in every single game. That's 13 games. Patrick Mahomes, of course, expecting more of the same this year.
Well, I think it's just the greats, man. They step up in the playoffs, and it's just higher intensity, and the best players and the best leaders step up and make the best plays, and he's done that, and so I expect the same from him going into this playoffs. And I think his mentality that he steps on the football field with at practice and on game day is kind of resonates with the entire team and gets everybody to play their best football, and that's what it takes in order to win championships.
All right, Anita, Kelce's numbers for the regular season, very pedestrian, especially by his standards. Are you buying, though, the narrative that we could buy low on Kelce because the playoff performer is going to show up?
Absolutely. I mean, this is, you talk about Travis Kelce, you talk about Patrick Mahomes. They are a different breed. They are a different, both of them, different animals when they get into the postseason. I love Kelce anytime touchdown. You're looking at getting Hollywood Brown and D. Hopkins back. And people might be like, oh, Patrick Mahomes is going to have more weapons to work with. You know what's going to happen? It's going to open up things for Travis Kelce in the middle of the field, right? Because defenses are going to have to pay attention to other threats along with Worthy. So 19 touchdowns in 19 playoff games. I love the over of his receiving totals as well. 22 postseason games, he's exceeded 52 and a half total receiving yards in 18 of those 22. They're just a different breed when it comes to the postseason.
I mean, Kelce anytime touchdown, I think, is definitely worth a look, like you mentioned, just a different breed come the postseason. If you look back to last year, just remember, everyone was talking about him and Taylor Swift the entire regular season. Oh, she a distraction, X, Y, and Z. He goes into the postseason, he has 32 catches for 355 yards and 3 touchdowns in 4 games. He also had more receiving yards in the postseason than he did during the regular season. The same is going to apply here. If you even hear him talk about the postseason, which again, looming, he's very incredibly excited for it, hyped up for it, as he should be. He is Old Faithful, he is Old Reliable. So touchdown at plus 130, I think, is considered a look. Sorry, took me a second to get there.
Chiefs' last 7 playoff games, he scored the first touchdown of the game 5 times.
Ooh,
5 times.
Joe.
At 6-1. Now, that's already the favorite, but if the narrative is, all right, he's saving it for the playoffs, they probably come out and force him the ball right in the end zone to send a message to everybody early in the game. So I'd look at that one. I think it's an Xavier Worthy game when it comes to the pass catchers, but the first touchdown one is what kind of stands out.
These numbers you see on your screen here, pretty much in line with what the bookmakers were throwing out there during the regular season, Joe. Are you surprised that they're not maybe leaning in more to the narrative and juicing those up a little bit?
Well, 8-point favorite. So if you're up big, how much throwing are you going to do in the second half? That's something to keep in mind. Number 2, Kansas City offensive line, still a problem. Houston does have a pass rush. They can get after you. Houston's done a decent job defending opposing tight ends, whereas Kansas City is not. Like, you want to talk tight ends, Dalton Schultz on the other guy. That's the one you should be looking at.